2018 Volkswagen Beetle Dune Coupe Review. The good points of Volkswagen Beetle Dune Coupe. Looks like hardly anything else. Satisfying to push. Bright, cheery interior. Large discounts available. The bad points of Volkswagen Beetle Dune Coupe. Extremely high finance costs. Cramped rear seat accommodation. Not much standard equipment. Off-road style over substance. Only one petrol and diesel. The standard Volkswagen Beetle is usually a car that prioritizes design over practicality. The Dune version, however, ups the ante, boasting suspension that was raised by 10 mm plus chunky unpainted plastic body moldings and silver skid plates at both sides, all within the name of favor. Confirming the Beetle's position as increasing numbers of a fashion statement than the usual 4x4, all-wheel drive is just not even around the options list. This may be no off-roader, however it does hark returning to the Baja bugs with the 1960s. Modified Beetles built to take on California's Golden Coast. As for rivals, there's no other that can match the Dune's retro looks and jacked-up stance. Closest in concept will be the Mini Paceman, a 3-door, high-riding stretched Mini, and then the Nissan Juke and DS4 Crossback, which both boast a lot more modern styling. Large premium over standard Beetle. Another area the place that the Dune is unique is in costs. The price tag of approximately £21,000 to £25,000 besides seems steep weighed against Mini and Nissan alternatives, and represents more when compared to a £2,000 premium over conventional Beetle equivalents in design trim. Nevertheless, it's hugely expensive in finance terms too. Watch the purchase price over 4 years and you will expect to pay for around £330 every month that has a £2,000 deposit. This is an enormous 50% premium within the Dune's most similar rival, the Mini Paceman Coupe, that may set you back around £220 every month concentrating on the same contract terms. As an end result, drivers can afford to upgrade to your significantly more powerful Paceman Coupe RS or Diesel Coupe RS and nevertheless save around £75 a month, totaling approximately £3,500 over 4 years. Despite boasting around double the amount of power because Dune, and all-wheel drive, the range-topping Mini Paceman John Cooper Works is just about £10 more monthly than the Volkswagen. Consequently, the Dune will not be a car which makes any rational sense regarding costs, a sentiment confounded comparing prices while using Nissan Juke. A similar 1.2-liter petrol model will amount to around £170 monthly, while including the rapid Juke Nismo RS is all about £260 each month. Inflated monthly finance bills but big cash discounts. So expensive would be the Dune in finance terms you can drive a near £9,000 pricier, and a lot of faster, more upmarket plus more desirable, Audi TT for the very similar payment amount. Be aware, however, that Volkswagen is providing a £3,000 discount to cash buyers through the range, making the Dune much better value to people who have cash to shell out or intend to finance the car which has a loan. Despite quite high list prices and finance costs, there's still nothing that could live up on the Dune's fun, retro vibe. The engines offered, however, are rather less fun, with just an entry-level 105 horsepower 1.2-liter petrol plus a 150 horsepower 2.0-liter diesel. Review to determine whether the Beetle Dune offers other reasons to spend a premium above the standard Beetle. Only 2 from the standard Beetle's engines make their way in the Dune, the 1.2-liter petrol as well as a 2.0-liter diesel. Both are accessible in manual and DSG automatic form, but that's where your alternatives end. With 105 horsepower on tap in 1.2-liter petrol form, the cheaper Beetle Dune models aren't fast. The engine ought to be worked difficult to accelerate briskly, and also then you'd expect more muscle out of a car which costs so much. Thankfully though, the gear change is slick, raising the driver to create the most on the motor's power. Press the throttle at low engine speeds plus the motor pauses briefly before responding to, and thus you often end up driving the Dune harder than the car which in fact had more power in reserve. The petrol motor is a lot more suited to gentle cruising than fast driving and fulfills this role well, feeling less overwhelmed from the weight in the car. Meanwhile, claimed economy for both manual and automatic versions stands just over 50 miles per gallon, not bad for the car on this size. The diesel shaves over 2 seconds from the moment the Dune should accelerate to 62 miles per hour. Taking it down from 10.9 to 8.6 seconds, in excess of nippy enough for almost all drivers. Claimed fuel economy is just not that different, however, with official figures of approximately 60 miles per gallon, depending whether you decide on the manual or automatic. Top speeds to the Dune also come in at 110 miles per hour for that petrol and 124 miles per hour to 126 miles per hour for that diesel. Though automatic gearboxes often struggle when mated to less powerful engines, the 1.2-liter petrol very effective in DSG form, feeling surprisingly responsive weight against the manual. Thanks to limited of in excess of 2,500 pounds for that diesel, the petrol is more efficient to most buyers, bar those that have to have the fastest or essentially the most economical Dune. The Dune isn't any sports car, though wide, grippy tires it really is surprisingly fun to push across twisty, undulating roads. In petrol form, your vehicle has considerably more grip than power, which means it feels very safe and secure and is skilled at taking corners quickly. The diesel supplies a more even split between power and grip, but nevertheless wears wide rubber and shares the petrol model's agility. The chunky tires also give added weight on the steering, using the unusually narrow-rimmed controls providing an excellent sense of confidence in how hard you're working top tires. Firm suspension meanwhile keeps the body in the car down around bends. All in all, the Dune surprises the trucker in just how capable it is with in terms of tackling more difficult roads. The suspension will not be as soft as some rivals, though the Dune does a great job of taking lumps and bumps from the road in their stride, without getting thrown off course. Volkswagen enjoys making high-quality, attractive interiors. However, the Beetle Dune seems like it has traded a few of that quality for garish colors and cheaper materials. Our test car arrived lurid sandstorm yellow, and plenty in this gold hue was slathered along the dashboard, doors and seats, a lot in acquired taste. While the similarly priced Volkswagen Golf feels very stylish and plush inside, the Beetle somehow loses this sense, with hard, cheap-feeling plastic scattered around the cabin. What does set it apart, however, could be the fact that the seats are mounted quite low from the car, which adds to your sporty feel. The basic air conditioning controls are perfectly usable, but don't think that they belong in this particular pricey car. Meanwhile, the optional sat-nav system within our test car isn't the simplest to use or even the slickest, using a relatively small, unresponsive screen lost in a serious large bezel. The menus aren't as up-to-date as many other Volkswagens, either. Simply entering an address is really a more convoluted process of computer should be too. This jacked-up Beetle also gains a turbo boost gauge, clock and temperature watch out sprouting in the top in the dashboard, which true on the Dune recipe revolve more around form than function. It's exactly the same story with all the upward-opening top glove box, which provides just enough space for just a few pens as well as a phone or two, yet not much else, though there exists at least a regular glove box below. Our test car had an armrest that can have are available and handy, but we couldn't understand to stand up alone. Though firm, we found the suspension greater than comfortable enough from the Beetle Dune, smoothing out your worst with the road surface, impressively so, considering how well the automobile handles. More of any limiting factor would be the shapeless driver's seat, which doesn't offer much back or side support. The seat base also feels long, which means that some drivers is probably not able to find an appropriate driving position. We found it tough to operate the clutch smoothly with all the seat using what felt like one of the most natural position. As an outcome, buyers should please take a long test drive to generate sure that they are able to get comfy. Alternatively, the DSG automatic gearbox is incredibly slick and makes driving the Dune a considerably more relaxing experience. Other irritations come inside form of an particularly stiff handbrake, unusual itself to get a manual handbrake as opposed to an electric button-operated version, as well as the high quantities of tire noise thrown up from the overly wide wheels. On the positive side, the petrol engine is extremely quiet even though worked hard and little wind noise is audible. You'd expect the Beetle to talk about a similar haul of equipment towards the more sensible Golf hatchback, although the latter provides you with more equipment, including sat-nav, and a considerably more powerful engine cheaper. As an effect, the normal kit that comes around the Dune feels very stingy. You don't realize handy automatic headlights and wipers, front and back parking sensors, an armrest and also a 6.5-inch touchscreen media system, but that's over it. Everything else is cosmetic. Volkswagen throws an 18-inch alloy wheels and also the suspension is 10 mm higher compared to standard car, though this allows no tangible advantage of customers. It's a similar story for that numerous exterior trim tweaks that set the Dune apart. Some drivers will like these but others will hate them. The Beetle was last crash tested next year, over a system with slightly different parameters on the current test. However, it ought to remain a fairly safe car. All Beetle Dunes get twin front and side airbags, along with a raft of safety kit including active head restraints, and ISOFIX child seat preparation for both in the rear seats. The car also gets Volkswagen's automatic post-collision foot brake that brings your vehicle to a safe stop inside the event of any crash, to avoid subsequent collisions. One from the Dune's main selling points, its unique curvy styling, can make it stick out. Nevertheless, it also limits practicality somewhat, as also does the three-door only body. As a consequence, neither the back seats nor the boot compare well against rivals. With no 5-door option, rear passengers ought to clamber their way into your back on the Beetle and, while in, head and legroom has limitations. There's only space for 2 main passengers, too. Even those under 6 feet tall might find their heads resting within the roof, along with the story doesn't obtain that much better from the boot. Volume isn't bad at 310 liters using the rear seats up, rising to 905 liters in the event you drop the seats, although Dune's most apparent rivals all best these figures by around 1020%. It's not by far the most usefully shaped boot, either, due on the car's sloping silhouette, which means that fitting in larger items could possibly be tricky. Fitting smaller items to the Dune can be hard as well. The leading door bins are useless, including things like fabric straps, while passengers from the rear have a very tiny cup holder to address over, plus minute trays at the side from the cabin. Adding to storage, there are 2 a lot more useful large cup holders behind the gear stick.